Seconds to go. Oh, my computer is really laboring this morning. Hello, everybody on planet Earth. Yes, my computer is really laboring today. Oh my god. Okay. I'm just going to turn this mic off. No, I'm going to leave it on. I don't know if I can do this Zoom thing because what the fuck is going on? Sorry, dude. My computer doesn't like this. Oh, I love it. Hey, you're on Art of Rock, and as usual, Carl's life is a fucking joke. It's a fucking joke, you fucking cunts. Talking about... Thank you, bitch. Talking about jokes, my advice to everyone, man, I am on it this morning. I am on fire, and I've got it this morning. Today, I am working. I think that's working. That is not even the right page, man. I feel like stopping this and starting the whole damn thing again. Hi, I'm Carl. This is the Art of Rock. I just don't give a shit. But we're going to talk about rock and roll today. And all I will say is please join us here every Saturday morning. And we're going to make fantastic things happen. There it is. Boom. Every Saturday. Every damn Saturday. This is brought to you by Angel Split's Patreon. Many members are here. It'll cost you $3 a month. And you can keep me going. And I love you for it. And Angel Split's new single is called Art of War, and it's out now. So do me a favor, go listen to it. And feel free to jump on Reddit and tell me how much you hate it and how much you hate me. Reddit is the greatest place on earth to go when you want to feel good about yourself. I'm finding increasingly. Hi, your mic's alive. Let's go. Let's have a fucking merry old version of this thing. Rezi, you got a question? Or Ivan had a question. Ivan, you had a question.
Okay, licensing something for a cover, except more complicated because it was not made in the West. I'm currently working on a re-envisioning of Paczki Cigarette, which is a song by Kino, written by Victor Tsoi back in like 1982 in Leningrad. So technically speaking, that song, if they'd been paying close attention, or if things had worked out differently, for writing the song, he could have gotten in a great deal of actual trouble, the kind of trouble that involves a 4x8 cell and being half starved for a very long time.
Right. I see hands. I have no idea myself. Vince, can you sing your response, please?
No, that I cannot do. Actually, if you know who wrote the song and you know who originally distributed the song, I don't know about other options, but I know if you go through DistroKid, it's like...
Okay. Originally, it was distributed on illegally produced reel-to-reel tape. Or
Okay.
if you could find it on vinyl, it was actually an X-ray of somebody taken at the hospital that was then etched with the song so that it could be played on a turntable. And the guy that wrote it mysteriously died in a car accident in 1990.
That doesn't matter. If you know who wrote it, you can fill that information in, and then if you go through DistroKid, it's like $12.99 a month, and they cover all the licensing stuff for cover songs.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
or not
a good
month. It's $12.99 a year for the song, or $11.99, something like that. It's like $11 or $12 or $13 a year covers your licensing rights on the song through DistroKid, as long as when you upload it, you credit the original writers.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm going to want to make sure that the right people get the right pay on this one.
The thing about that is you cannot distribute it anywhere that DistroKid is not distributing it to legally when you do that. Like you can't you can't pay for the cover song license through DistroKid and then upload it on Bandcamp, because then those sales are not tracked from the Bandcamp sales, so they have no way to cover licensing fees and make sure you're all good legally there.
Okay.
Okay. This is really interesting. Thank you. Vince, was there anything else you wanted to add to that before I throw it to Raziel?
No, I don't think so.
That was
That's
great.
it. Yeah, that's what I just did for my latest cover. That's the only reason I know that. I figured
Okay.
that out
Thank you.
and did it myself.
Rez, give me information.
I don't want to put anything permanently on the internet that's as outdated as I might be, but traditionally there is a compulsory license available for the copyright inherent in the song, and the agency that handles that or has handled it for clearing the royalty splits is the Harry Fox agency, and the digital distributors may affiliate with them, and they may have other ways of doing this now. But there is automatically in the United States copyright law a right to make your own version of the song, which doesn't substantively change the song. So you're just using their song, and then there's a rate, a statutory rate at which you can split the royalties. And HFA was taking care of that with an easy sign up form on their website.
Yeah,
in
I'm
previous
pretty
times.
substantially changing the song.
That could be a different issue altogether, and you could consult the volunteer lawyers for the arts, perhaps, if you want to actually know. Because I'm just saying stuff I learned in 1994 college. So
That's really amazing. Thank you. Mark, welcome. You look so good right now. You look so relaxed. And I think all of us are going, all you need is a cat, and you will have achieved nirvana. Give me information, please.
So, both the other gentlemen are correct. Couple caveats. DistroKid, that license for covers is one, it is an annual recurring thing. So, like, if you don't re-up that, it like you need to be subscribed, but also it's a recurring charge per annum to have that cover. That's the one thing they do is like a recurring charge like that, and it's a per song thing. So if you had 6 covers, you're getting charged for 6 covers per year that you keep them up. Two, there's as regards to the licensing, Raziel was speaking to, that is also correct. 2 things of note. One, there is a difference between licensing for a cover and licensing for a remix. Like, you get into a remix contest, that's an entirely different creature as I understand it, and that doesn't fall under the standard like HFA or DistroKid license. That falls under remix. Now, if you just change the arrangement a bit, like, it's probably fine. Like, if you're just doing a remix, and what constitutes the two is something you might want to talk to a lawyer about, because even I'm not 100% sure the difference, where they're drawing the line legally. I just know there is a difference, and covers are covered, remixes are not. Third, you're going to run it if you want to do what I think you're going to want to do, probably, knowing you, is the video. Video is not at all covered by any of that. Video is a sync license. The second you set music to imagery, even if it's like a 3-minute long still shot that you just grabbed off like album cover work or made whatever, even if it's not moving, you set it to an image, that's a sync license. And the only person who can grant a sync license is the current copyright holder, like if it changed hands or something. And sync licenses are not compulsory. They can tell you to pound sand. So good luck getting those, because it's very hard, although it's become easier. Like Sony ATV, there's a Billy Thorpe track I want to do cover of from back like in '82. I've talked to them. They're like, cool, you put it on YouTube. As long as you don't monetize it, we will allow that. They've become more complacent in recent years, but it really depends on who has the rights and who's the publisher. So just a couple things that I'm aware of, because I've gone down that path before.
Yeah, this is made more complicated because there was no label involved. Technically speaking, they couldn't actually own their own work because it belonged to the people. Technically, the people wanted to pretend it didn't exist because, again, they'd arrest them for making it in the first place.
Which Which brings to mind the question, like, do the usual rules apply if
He's dead.
they yeah, well, if you, well, no, implicit copyright survives death for 70 years, at least in this country, but it begs the question, though, if the work is entirely disavowed as not existing anymore, does it then fall in the public domain? And I don't know the answer.
Yeah, this is super complicated. I do. Maybe I know somebody I can talk to. The God, what band is that? Brazzaville did a cover of a Star Called Sun, which off the same recording album as this song. So they did make a video as well, but they're doing what I did, which was like they changed the lyrics around, kept the tune.
I mean, if you go to good example, and I travel in slightly different genres than some of you gentlemen, but like Lush did a lot of covers, and like there's a Zound song, Demystification, and Lush was notorious for doing covers of things and just improving upon them drastically, different arrangements, but the same song. So like I'm not as concerned about the arrangement being changed or even the lyrics. I mean, a lot of, the gender flipped lyrics these days now, and it's still a cover. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. Your best bet is probably one, check the Harry Fox catalog. Songfile.com is really a front for Harry Fox. So just go to songfile.com.
Yeah, it's over there.
Is it in there?
It does come up, but with the wrong names.
Oh, well, that's because, well, like, assuming it's the actual track, and it's, and you, like, you can prove that it's actually that because you have some inside knowledge, like, yeah, that was that song, but these were the actual songwriters, because what they do is they list the actual songwriters.
Yeah.
So, like, if
those are wrong.
Outside, but you're sure it's the right track.
Well, and like song code's not going to tell me anything there.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if it was the same track and it's in there, then the usual licensing should apply, and then you've got less to worry about, at least with the mechanical license.
But I'm kind of hoping that it's this is straightforward, because it's coming along nicely and it's going to sound cool, and it's a really good song because it's so fucking dark.
You had me listening to it, and I agree. The as far as the video goes, I mean, like I said, that's a sync license. They're non-compulsory, and getting permission for that is going to be a lot harder if you want to do it. Thing is, like,
I'm pretty sure it can be done because Brazzaville has succeeded in doing it, and they're way bigger than I am.
Right. Well, anyone can do it. It usually comes down to, does the original artist or whoever has control over it actually care enough to bother trying enforcing it? And the worst you probably face is a cease and desist. Realistically speaking, if you, out of respect, do not want to roll those dice, I perfectly understand that, and I would be on board with that. But, realistically, your exposure is probably not that big if they're sort of a niche sort of thing. Realistically. Just saying. Practical terms.
So I'm doing my part today to come up with the complicated stuff.
Good. Thank you. Both of you, thank you. I'm actually going to pass this off to you, Resi, because all of my questions got asked.
Yeah. Partly, Ivan, are you more concerned with selling it on the digital distro or with the YouTube version of it?
Really, I'm not that interested. Like I'm just interested in being able to distro it. Like, once I'm done with this, I'm probably going to hand it out for free. Because this is a hobby for me, not my job.
Okay,
cool.
I'm
a bastard.
Yeah, if HFA lists it, you've done your due diligence, and somebody who thinks they own the publishing rights to it has claimed it. That is what's most important, because if there's nobody that thinks they own and want to deal with administering the publishing rights, then it's not likely that they're also going to complain. And if you want to escrow the income and have it there for a time when somebody does come after you, that's fine. But also just wanted to add, for the YouTube component, Content ID is going to get it. Somebody who thinks they own the publishing for the thing
Oh.
is going to claim your song, and when you put it up, you'll get copyright claimed, and they'll get the royalties. That's just simply how the sync will go for that. I've done like 4 acoustic covers that got claimed by various publishing, Warner, whatever, and it just happens. So good. I don't think it's necessarily as complicated as that. I mean, as you might think it is, in that you found a likely place to do the royalty split for the
Okay.
publishing. So, not a lawyer, probably wrong. Good luck. Mark, thanks for all that info. That was super
Yeah, that
interesting.
was great. Thank you very much, everybody. That was a very interesting conversation. Does anybody else have another thing they want to throw into this, or change the mode completely and do something different? Wow, we never go. What do you got?
Who, me?
Anyone? Give me with a question.
You know, I didn't bring this up earlier, but I'm kind of interested in anybody else's experience with actually setting up their sync publishing and other rights inherent in the works that they create. I bet Vince has something to say about the process. I can just tell. And Mark, if you have anything to add, I'd be really interested in. And Carl, obviously, you have a large body of work. The process, what you've done, how you keep track of it, long-term maintenance of your properties.
Floor is open.
I'll start, but I don't have a whole lot of information on this because I have not had to acquire any sync licensing for anything for myself yet. Mostly because I don't know how. I don't know who to get a hold of to get the sync licensing for the things I want to license. That's the problem I have there. But as far as keeping track of the records goes, depending on how you distribute, that's actually not that difficult. Because most distributors will give you a list of all of your, what's the word I'm looking for? Licenses. There we go. That's yeah, they'll give you a list of all your licenses that you can download, and then you've got all that information for yourself if you have licensing things available for your music. But yeah, I would be very interested to know who to get a hold of to get sync licensing for specific music. I imagine it would be different people depending on where the music comes from, but how do you go about getting that information, who to get a hold of for whatever the song may be that you want to get a sync license for?
Mark, thank you.
That would be all my research when I did this said that only the current copyright holder can actually do it. So if you had something that was done by, for instance, like I want to do this Billy Thorpe track. He's dead now, but the people that actually own the copyright to his work are now Sony ATV. So what I did is I looked up Sony ATV, and I forget how I read. I mean, it was doable via Google and Harry Fox. You could find the track in Harry Fox, but I wanted the video rights, but I believe they show you who the actual copyright holder is on Harry Fox when you look it up on Songfile. So start there, Google your way through it, find out who the copyright holder currently is. That's who you have to deal with. They're the only person. Harry Fox can't even grant that license. It has to be the current copyright holder. Then you need to contact them. Sometimes getting a hold of that's going to be easier if they're a major label like Sony. Easy. And then you just mail them and, hey, here's what I want to do. Can I have permission? What would it cost me? Whatever. I offered to pay. I was willing to pay. Just as a vanity project, I was willing to pay. And they're like, as long as you don't monetize it, we'll allow that. And they were ultra cool about it. Way cooler than I expected, because you know what the record business is supposed to be like, right? But I can't guarantee every publisher is going to be like that. But a lot has changed since the model has changed, and since YouTube became a thing, and now Content ID is no longer like you get a copyright hit like as Raziel was saying, I think. You get copyright hit is not the death sentence it used to be, like 3 strikes, your account's gone. Now they've got to the point where the publishers are cozy enough with the distribution platforms that they just take over the monetization. You don't see anything for it, but it's not really counting against you. And I think they finally come to the point, at least some of them have come to the point where they realize it's in their best interest because they're getting the exposure for this sort of thing, and can actually make money off of it themselves. So I think they changed how they're mentally dealing with it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
the
I mean,
DCMA strikes are separate from the Content ID matches. Those are automated.
yeah, and DCMA has to be done. Matter of fact, if you're not wrong, because there is a band, Halocene, right? And they do their original material, but they do a lot of covers. And there was this thing where they were doing covers of songs, and their song got covered against their will by this Australian version of like Everyone's Got Talent or something, and they were livid. And I'm like, guys, look, literally, and I was one of their early supporters, right? I literally donated to their Patreon like hundreds of dollars. I bought them like all the Spectrasonics plugins for Brad, just to help them further their dream. And they made it big. They started doing this, and they got big heads. And their song got covered in the way that they do other people's. They just sneak it under the wire. They got covered on national TV in Australia, and they went thermal. And I said, guys, you do this on live streams twice a week. To claim this and be that upset about it is so hypocritical. It's not even funny. And it's just like, so they kept doing it. And the next one they did, I was on principle so ticked off. I tried filing a copyright claim on their cover. You can't. You can't do a DMCA claim if you're not the actual person that created it, even if you know it's wrong, even if you can prove that it's not theirs. YouTube doesn't care. If you're not the copyright holder, they just ignore the complaint and deny the claim. They don't care. It's a weird, wacky, upside down universe over there.
Cool. Raz.
Just for one data point, I registered with BMI or ASCAP. I don't even remember which, so long ago. And you know, I know about the club play, and I know I've seen cue sheets from broadcasts and stuff, and I just, for whatever reason, know also that I've never received a single actual scan from any of them, and I've never received a royalty payout on the performance royalties portion of the stuff. So the reason I'm asking is if anybody has actually vigorously pursued the small but significant royalty streams that some of those parts of owning the song can afford you. Which is no, nobody has.
That's a big fat no there.
Well, somebody's got all of our money is what I'm saying, so.
Yeah.
All of our 32p.
Yeah, someone's got my fucking 30 cents, and I'm fucking livid about that shit.
Right.
Yeah, I duck out of water on that one. A duck in
Just
the
to set the background is I think we're in a group that has had at least some significant nightclub play, and all of those nightclubs are licensed for performance of music with ASCAP, and they pay their fees, and the portion of that is due to somebody who has had their music played, and it might be a very small portion, but we're also living in a time where these small payouts are what we're used to with streaming royalties. So it's, you know, part of that income. Chase down, be aware of, keep track of.
Yeah, I
stay on top of.
My amount of money I've pulled from fucking being played in clubs is, I think I bought myself I bought myself a shoelace once, I think.
You can get single shoelaces.
Yeah. Maybe I
Bargain
stole
bin.
it. I can't remember, but I left 30 cents on the counter. But that's what freedom costs, isn't it? And that's $1.05. Sorry. Mark, what you got?
Well, I mean, and you know, you hear stuff like that where, you know, people are owed copyrights, and usually what I hear it come to is a lawsuit, but it's the cost benefit ratio. Is it really worth pursuing if you're gonna make, 50p and the lawsuit costs, several thousand to file, and the hassle? It's like, how much is that principle worth to you, right? Because really that's what you're fighting for, is principle. Because the only reason you launch a lawsuit is for money. So it's a catch-22, and a lot of people can fly under the wire on that, sadly.
Well, I have definitely never considered suing the performing rights organization that I'm part of. And I liked having a card, and it gave me a discount on some guitar strings one time. So I do have that going for me, which is nice.
See, shoelaces, guitar strings. See
Yeah.
what's going on here? Yeah. Something good. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to this topic? Or do we want to throw something different in there into the quagmire?
Mind if I jump back for a second?
Sure.
Ivan, you mentioned just in passing the phenomenon of these X-ray songs, and
Yeah, they were a thing.
I know. I don't know if I've seen it in documentary or
An
just read up
X-ray
on it,
song.
but
What the fuck?
Ivan, can you
well,
go into
okay,
detail on that? It's a huge, amazing, beautiful.
It was the way bootlegging happened in those days.
Is it
Um,
specifically a Soviet thing?
oh yeah, yeah. Because the material upon which to bootleg was scarce. You couldn't get like blank vinyl and then record to it. Also, you couldn't like mass import, contraband, and so they'd get a smuggled in, album, and then copy it onto X-ray film, because it was vinyl. They just cut it straight on. It was one side and it was vinyl.
All right.
And this reproduction was probably less than good, but like you could kind of hide the stuff in plain sight then as well, because it was an X-ray. And then reel to reel was the other popular way to do it, because reel to reel tape was not impossible to get, and the players were not impossible to find, especially if you were a kind of higher placed part of the system. Like you could then get your Beatles albums on reel to reel and listen to them that way.
That's
It
amazing.
just strikes me how amazingly aesthetically subversive and punk rock it is to have your self-cut, self-released 45 on a image of
busted
radiation,
hand.
skeleton, brain, skull. I mean, it's fucking unbelievable.
That's very cool.
Yeah, when I've got a deep love in my heart for Kino, because we talk about how like subversive we are, and we're taking risks. They were actually taking risks, like actually like could have been arrested. And back then the popular way of handling a subversive was to put them into a mental hospital, because they had to be crazy to be against the system.
Damn. Fucking damn. Did you want to add anything onto that, or can I throw this to Mark? Mark, I see your hand. Talk to me, baby.
Yeah. So, God, you just gave me an idea, Ivan. Seriously. Oh my God. Because I didn't know about the X-ray thing until you just said it and described what it's like. Okay. But I have the craziest idea right now. The NFT thing, right? But here's the interesting... No, here's the interesting thing. Oh, we've been thinking small. Like, so in music circles that I've traveled in, one of the things I learned was you can embed things in spectrograms. So like if you ran a song through a spectrogram, you've got like an imprint of an image file you may have put in there, and there'll be text like literally in the analysis, and you can see it. Like you could say up the queen, I don't know, whatever, but sort of like the equivalent, today's equivalent of backmasking. No, that's thinking small. The X-ray idea gave me this. Take an entire song, make a giant image rendering, sell the entire song as an NFT, but as a visual, right? Like giant honkin', I'm talking like wall size, poster sized rendering, and you could shrink it down so it's like digitally available. But that is sort of like a weird mishmash of like two of the most arcane things I've ever seen in music circles. I just thought it was an interesting concept to do, even if it's not necessarily practical. But distribute your song not as an audio file, as an image file, right?
That's amazing.
And
I love that.
begs that further extrapolation. That begs the interesting question of, if you take that and work with it graphically, what are the remix potentials there if you really knew what you were doing?
Using Photoshop to do the remix.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Furious. That's crazy. Interesting. Thanks, man. Mark, what you got? Mark, you're muted, my darling.
Not to nitpick, but why does it have to be an NFT?
It doesn't. It literally, you could just do it. I mean, it strikes me as the same sort of thing Pink Floyd would have done back in the day. Honestly, it wouldn't have surprised me if they had tried. But just because current context and what we've seen in the last 3 years or so, as these have become more and more popular. But it doesn't have to be at all. And in fact, I mean, I would only do that if you didn't really care about your song being distributed, because I know a digital visual artist, 3D rendering artist, that flat out told me the second you list something, it's available to everyone. Like, they can just pull it off the server. Really what people are buying when they buy NFTs is bragging rights to say, I own the rights to the original. Everyone else can have a copy, but it's a copy, and it's basically bragging rights, very, very expensive bragging rights.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like, why though? Why make an NFT? Just put it out there for download.
I don't disagree. It was just where my thought process led me. I'm working on 3 hours sleep, so forgive me.
And I'm working on not a lot of coffee. I think we need to up this fucking bunny today, right now. Thank you, guys. Does anybody else want to add in? I see Rezzy's hand up. Mark, did I just cut you off? Mark? No? Good. Rezzy, what do you got?
I was trying to just to get us off the blockchain in case we needed to veer back into kind of on the modern-ish topic of encoding your music into weird places. The oscilloscope music trend from maybe 5-10 years ago. It's another interesting...
I'm not aware of the oscilloscope
kind of
trend.
hack.
What?
Oh,
man,
cool.
I'm
This
just
is another.
so not with the cool kids.
Well, I haven't done it. I sold my oscilloscope when I moved into this place, and I don't have an actual analog scope. But I'm gonna not delve too deeply into waters that I have no authority speaking in, and just pop a link into the chat, because the things that people create using what sound like noise waveforms, and similar to the sonograms encoding music graphically, this uses the Lissajous and traces of a 2-axis oscilloscope pattern to do a similar effect, and people draw a 3-dimensionally rotating mushroom, and it sounds like some psychedelic noise trip. So it's a cool other thing to spend some time getting your eyes and ears around.
Wow, thank you. I'm going to post that into the chat right now. This is really interesting. Does anybody else want to add to this, or does anybody else want to scoop their brains out with a spoon? Mark!
I know I'm being ultra chatty today, right?
That's good.
No, I have seen that. Are you aware on Facebook of the group Vector Synthesis? Because so I own the Vector synth, like the actual Vector, and I mistakenly, after that, it's like I'll buy like a wave state, or I'll buy an op6, and Ivan and I'll do the same thing. We'll get into the groups after we buy it, and I thought I was doing that for the Vector synth, and it turns out the Vector Synthesis group is exactly a group of people that are into exactly what you were just talking about.
XY vectors, not audio
Yes.
vectors. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see so much cool stuff in there. You're not wrong. Yeah, that is it. It's on Facebook. Just look up Vector Synthesis. It's a private group. You'll need to be approved, but they're cool people over there. Yeah.
So is vector synthesis, we're talking about visual synthesis or sound synthesis that creates something visual?
It's an
Sounds
interesting.
yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
crossroads of getting a sound that's cool, generated out of the coordinate pattern of a visual that looks interesting. So it'll sound like a trippy noise and look like a trippy image. That's the art. Make something. If it
Wow.
was just white noise with a scrambled Lissajous pattern, that's not so cool. However, if it's a bicycle rotating on a small planet that sounds like a rhythmic, pulse industrial groove, oh, you got something. Because those are the kinds of things that I last saw generated by the people. But there's way higher art things than that. I'm giving it a little bit short change there.
That's very interesting. It's very creative.
Fascinating stuff.
Um,
Cool skill, cool hobby.
Yeah. I just really wish I had the time to invest into that sort of thing. Mark, your hand's still up. Did you want to add anything into that?
One, I just pasted the link to the Facebook group, and
Oh, thank you.
two, I believe there was recently an actual installation, like art installation, and I can't remember who it was, but they had like it was like a multiple sculpture thing, and they had CRTs embedded in those, and they literally had like that whole vector synthesis thing in an art museum somewhere, like in an actual physical installation, like in that art world sense, and that was actually kind of cool to see. I just can't remember who it was, I probably found it through that group, so it might be worth a dig through there.
That's madness. Total fucking madness. Does anybody have anything they want to throw in? Do we want to get some conversation going? What's going on? Talk to me.
I'm not logged into Twitch, but I was trying to reply to Adam about the glowy phosphor animated 3D Etch-a-Sketch effect. That's all.
Welcome, Adam, and I'm glad those meds are kicking in. I'm quietly jealous that those meds are kicking in. I think we need to come onto this more fucked up. I mean, come on, it's the art of rock, and the art of rock is drugs. I was having a great conversation with the red panel Buchla, somebody recently, about the mystical red panel Buchla that had LSD on it. And, yeah, that was a good conversation. Does anybody want to start on something? Do we want to talk about something? I really want to talk about something fun and exciting. That isn't copyright. Copyright's really interesting. It's like tax. Songwriting process. Anyone?
Or do we want to go music theory or life and music goals?
Let's go music theory. Oh no, somebody.
Music theory.
Just because you said it first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ivan, were you more excited about one or the other? You got the broadest
Ivan-
gestures, though.
Yeah, I just love that. I love that what you're wearing. I love it. It's so Christmassy and happy. We can talk about life.
Oh, you know
things.
what?
Oh, it's
No,
just
I want to
so-
know more about your oblique strategies deck. That's a thing that
Okay.
we've talked about a couple of times over the.
And here it is. Well, I think Brent was watching. So this is from my friend Brent, who's in Ice Planet 9000. He's like he's my guru behind the whole thing, and this is the 78 version. Look at that, and apparently it came from somebody who he mentioned it was something to do with it was a stash that was apparently Eno had something to do with or something. It's from Eno's stash or something like that. Brent is the sort of guy who can get backstage with Jean-Michel Jarre, and now they're best friends. He just does shit. He's a really interesting guy, really fucking lovely guy. I guess he's my oblique strategies in human form, because with Ice Planet 9000 he said think prime numbers. Think blue and green instead of red, black and white. So it's discover the recipes you are using and abandon them. It's funny. I define an area as safe and use it as an anchor. There's just a million of them. What mistakes did you make last time? And they smell like old. Smell like old paper. And it's great. I was making music yesterday, and I'm trying to pull out one a day. And it was Ghost Echoes. And I was talking with my friend yesterday. We went to the beach, actually. And we sat on the beach for a while, and we were talking about oblique strategies and wondering, can you use them in relationships? And we were talking about Ghost Echoes, that it's just a really interesting thing that, okay, sure, musically that means a lot, but also personally, it's like, them ghosts surely do fucking echo. They keep coming back, and dealing with them is difficult. But I'm really excited about using this as a writing thing. I'm inspired to make my own because I have so many little Carlisms. And I don't know. I'm very excited to kind of like throw myself into this. It's always interesting that we were talking the other week about creating music and art with AI generators, but not actually going, hey, AI generator, come give me a piece of musical idea, but give me some words or some images or something that I can, if I was making music with a painter, or if I was making music with somebody who wasn't a musician, because I always think the best music you come up with is when you make music with someone who isn't a musician. Or maybe that's a generalization, I don't know. But, a concept to here's a set of boundaries or not boundaries that are visual or words or thoughts or spirituality or lessons in history, How can you push beyond what your brain, How can you do something whack? Mark!
In that vein, interesting thing, I don't know if anyone's read Carl Sagan's Contact, but like the movie skipped the part that actually makes that book worthwhile, because in the end, even though it's mathematically impossible, I thought the coolest fictional concept was she had been told that pi had a message embedded in it, and she had let it run out for like several years and finally found the message. But extrapolating from that, though, I tried doing something like that after seeing somebody with a Sins from Deluge do something really cool. They took the periods of the planets in the solar system, and they set up pattern. You saw that, Raziel? It's cool. They took the periods of the planets, and they set each row to one of the periods, all relative to each other in steps, and they let it cycle out. So you'd have, Pluto doing like a base note every so long, but it was a very long period. Mercury was, almost like an ARP, and all the spectrum in between. And extrapolating from that, I tried something, and it sounded weird. I ended up calling it Ghetto Pi. It's just like these little experimental things. I literally just took like the first like 8 digits of pi and did something like that with like the Euclidean sequencing that they built into version 4. And you got to play with it. Like some things you can't run everything forward. Like some things you have to run forward, some things you have to run ping pong, some things you have to run backwards, and you got to experiment with which thing gets which lengths. But you can do some interesting experimental stuff that is kind of out there. The trick I find though is like it's sort of like making ambient. I'm a fan of this guy Substan on YouTube. He does incredible ambient stuff with Electron gear. He should literally be their like public face because he's so good with it. But like, I talked to him about how to make this stuff, and he's given me some great tips. But like the trick with doing things like that is always to be able to get it back to musical. And that, I guess that depends. What do you consider musical, right? Is it rhythm and melody, or is it, everyone, it's a subjective thing to a point. I mean, there's obviously a formal definition of it, but it's how musical do you consider it? And getting it there is from a concept like that is at least for me, because I don't have a music theory background, is a hard thing to do. But when you get it right and it sounds even halfway decent, it's like cool, you know, and it could be like this geek thing and nobody knows where it came from, but you know, you know, and sometimes it's all that matters is you know.
We can thank Pythagoras for the music of the spheres.
Hmm?
The way that the simple ratios work to sound good, and the ways that our 12 tone equal temperament stretch those ratios into not simple ratios is sometimes, I don't know, magically thinking said to be part of the entire agitation of the 20th century in Western culture. So there's some we'll call it a Pythagorean comma between pure musical bliss of the music of the spheres and the overtone sequence compared with our 12 tone out of tune slightly experience. So I just wanted to say those words. I don't really have anything.
No, they were good words. And we've used Euclidean, Pythagorean, all sorts of words. And that's great.
I've been using it for guitar tuning because the thirds always being out of tune. Sometimes you want to like actually tune them to the fifth so that they're pure, depending on what you're playing. So that's kind of, I'm on that this week.
This is such an interesting thing because, like, you know, sure, music of the spheres, blah 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 blah. But you know, if you're looking at harmonics and shit like that, you know, you might say, okay, well, Pluto's going to be my huge bass harmonic, or maybe it will be Mercury. I don't know. But stuff becomes really interesting, you know, when you're, and, you know, arguably there has got to be some mathematical, of course there has to be a mathematical fucking agreement going on between the size and the periods of planets because gravity waves and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, and therefore is it, well, if it's a tiny thing, that's a high harmonic, you know. If maths is involved, which it is, therefore music is involved, which it is, therefore harmonics are involved, which they are. You know, I guess what I'm trying to say is, and this is kind of vaguely moving into what Rezi was talking about, you know, theory and shit. You know, theory is like, okay, so Ice Planet 9000 is releasing a track in January, and it's I've always had this fight with minor thirds, always major thirds versus minor thirds. I've always had this fight, and it's also sixths as well, kind of fifths, but not really. I know I'm supposed to have a fight with fifths because they're not really fifths, but I don't care. And this what's wonderful about a modular is you can say, okay, well that third is going to be kind of halfway, yeah. And in this, I found this sample that goes da 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 da. Kind of it's D major, but it's playing between the F sharp and the F natural. So it's, and it's not like a sharp 9 or anything. It's like this tiny tonal cluster, and it does the most lovely thing when you loop it, because you know if you're playing da 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 da, if you're playing D major, it's like, I know that feeling now. But if it's D minor, so I know that feeling too. But when you start introducing things, you know, musically that are going, I don't know what's going on, it's getting into uncanny valley creepy vibes. And I always think step one is do what the X-Files did. Don't let the listener know what's going on. Step one, you don't know what's going on. You know that Mulder's got a bum part. That's all you know. And it will have, and that is a wave station sound. That's all you're going to know. And little by little, we're going to be unraveling the story to you. And that's what's an interesting concept where you go, okay, well, we're going to start with the planets. You know, how can you twist according to, you can assign them as a harmonic, see what happens. And then there's a melody that runs through the whole thing. You know, man, when I was in university studying Frank Zappa, and Pythagoras also came up with the beam. That was his idea. There you go. If you put a big drone under that shit, you're fine. Because that's what, everybody did. All cultures went, I've got a bagpipe or whatever it is, and there's a drone. India did it. There's a drone. Can do anything I want over that fucking drone. It's like James Brown and the One. Rhythmically, you can do anything you want as long as you jump on the one. And I guess it's the same thing. The one, the fundamental. Bum, and then fly. I'm listening. I'm just so off my brain right now. I'm following on Facebook, besides Powwow and Sober. I'm following Indian raga music, traditional Indian music, and I'm really enjoying. There's this guy who he sings through these scales, and he'll sing through them off it, and he writes it down, and it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. It looks like a Mobius sketch, the French artist, Mobius. Did I say it right? Anyway, and it's everything's connected by the lines, and sometimes the lines do this, and sometimes they do squiggly things, and sometimes they do loops and shit, and he sings that. So I'm going to go from this note to this note, but the line isn't straight. It's not dung, dung, it's da, ah, ah, ah. And it's just mind-boggling. And I've been watching this shit going, I've got to fucking release my brain from the concept of A, B, C, D, E. That was actually C, E, G, whatever. C, D, E, F. I've got to release my mind from this because, my job is to swindle human emotions, is to make people dream, is to, and this fucking bark thing is great, but there comes a time to push away from that. And I see your hand, Mark. I'm going to shut up now. Go.
You have a Hydrosynth. Have you played with the microtuning?
No, I've got a K2000 and it's got microtuning, and I have played with it. It's good fun.
Yeah, and there are those wacky guitars that have the fretboards that look, like Dolly got a hold of them. They've got the microtuning as well. But one of the things that I was interested in learning, I think, was I like doing covers sometimes, not because more than 10 people are ever going to listen to them, but just for my own, because I've never done a cover and not come away learning something. For a while I was working on Cure covers, and one of the things, I have one of the complete control keyboards, it's got the light track that shows you the scale and everything, and I would set it to that so I couldn't screw up. But the weird thing was it's listed as being this one song, half that album is in D minor, literally, but you're in D minor, and all of a sudden, just in the middle of nowhere, there's a note that's outside the scale, and it's how do you get to the point where you're working in a scale and then you just toss in something that isn't even in that, and it makes it interesting and actually gives it that flavor? How do you make that? Is that just an intuitive leap they do, or is there a technique for knowing when to do it? I don't know.
I can tell you, but Resi's got his hand up first.
No, I wanted to actually hear you go back into it. Maybe I'll just say that I think it's easy to forget about the home key, all of our traditions, all the ones that come to mind for me, whether it's Eastern pentatonic or Indian raga or even Western chord harmony, have this concept of the home key, the one, which I love how that's similar to the downbeat, in some ways. And then using tones that conflict with that auditorily and create dissonance in the heart and the ear and the mind. And the more dissonant they are, the further they feel from that home key, and exploiting a language without words in playing with those dissonances in very specific and careful ways that are predictable, but a little surprising. And then they bring you and they push you and they want you, and you get home and you're comfortable again. And then you take the journey away from home. You can do all these epic wordless stories just based on these tones. And it's a very exciting thing to come back to those fundamentals. And the fact that you're mentioning drone music in particular is the purest manifestation of that consonance and dissonance sort of journey that they draw.
Okay, so class, why D minor?
It's the saddest of keys.
That's correct. Listen to Resi. Resi gets to teach his apple. You get nothing. Mozart actually said it was the key of death as well. It was the key attributed to death. So good try.
But he wasn't talking about 12-tone equal temperament, of course, because they're all the same sadness in tat.
No. He specifically said D. D minor is the key of death. If it's about death, D minor. Which is suggesting that each actual note has got a color to it, and no matter how far you go off, equal temperament, that there is still color assigned to the notes, which gets into another conversation, which is going to disrupt my brain. So I talked about minor thirds, major thirds, flat six, and the regular six. Here's a trick. So you've got your chorus, and the chorus might be 4 words. I love you, bitch. I love you, bitch. On that you, we're going to go to a different key. That's where we're going to throw that chord in. The word that you want to hit, maybe it's bitch, I don't know. But the word you want to hit and go, what you might do there is in the notes normally would be maybe it would be F, G, A, D. I'm sorry, F, G, A, G. Da, 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 da. But we're going to go A flat instead. Right? We're going to go A flat there. And what we're going to do also is, instead of it being, if it was F, that would be 4. If it was G, that would probably go back to 1. But when we're going to go to that A flat, I'm going to go to A flat major. And because I've just played an F with a C going into A flat major, you've set up all the... Here's Adam. Adam's on drugs, everyone. I'm secretly so jealous. When you... Adam!
Somebody said the magic word.
What was the magic word? Drugs? All right.
Brought him in.
Here he is. Put your fucking hand up, Adam. So when you hit that important word, you hit a chord. And that chord, specifically because you're going something minor, but it's a major chord, is power. You might do something similar. Adam, you're welcome. And hold on. You might do something similar, for example, instead of going to a flat fucking 6, like that A flat, your chorus might be C, D, E, but you're going to keep that E, but now instead of playing the C under it, you're going to play E major. So we're still in C, and you might, that would be fun. So you're going to go C major with your C on it. Then when you go to that D, it's going to be G major. Then you're going to change gears, and you're going to go to E major with that E. And that will be power, because you've set it up with the C, the G hits an E major. Instead of going, you'd think that if you're hitting an E in a C kind of thing, you're going to either play A minor or you're going to play C. But no, you're going to play E major. And it will do this to your soul. It will raise your soul up. And it's a punchline. It's a color that's outside the palette. Because instead of using red, black, white, and gray, you go blue. And that just makes you go for that moment. A lot of that, I think, lies in the lyrics and the power of the song, at what point you want to hit that power. And obviously, therefore, if you're doing that, when the song's going out and you want the whole spaceship to take off, you go back to whatever it is you were doing and you cycle those 2 big fucking chords. Razzie, I see your hand, then I'll throw to you, Adam. It's so good to see you in here.
Yeah, Adam, it's amazing to see you on screen. The 2 things. I would demand, Carl, that you have audio when you talk about these things.
Isn't
Because
this
I
enough for
think
you? Listen to that
it is
epic
not,
guitar.
because the language that we use to talk about this stuff is so abstract.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And I personally find it very difficult to stay technically adept at thinking things in letters, which was one of my questions that I wanted to pose. So it goes into it perfectly. I was thinking more of chordal harmony, but I need a fun and easy refresher course that isn't Rick Beato to go Western tonal harmony 101 or maybe 200 level kind of thing. So if anybody has a good suggestion for getting back into having the language at the ready to think about this stuff and talk about it with people. And the second thing is, I would love a suggestion or two. The second thing is, I by no means think you need the words to describe this stuff. I think most of it is very intuitive, and especially at the basic to mid advanced, not tricky level, it is something that we're sort of built in with. And I think Western harmony is more of a discovery about how we think than an invention of how to do stuff. So just wanted to say that. But Carl, yeah, man, like I love how you think, and I love that you have these, theory language at the ready. And it just reminds me of how much I've forgotten and never got skills with. And I would love to brush up on that.
What I will do is, next time we do this, because I have to rejigger everything, is maybe I'll pull in a synth, maybe next week, and we'll talk about harmony and shit. My only concern is that if that thing, because I can sell it to you by doing this, by doing those big Pete Townsends, but then I play it and it's like, that sounds like crap. So that was my out. But maybe we could do this next week. And now I'm going to throw it to Adam. It's so good to see your face, Adam.
Trying to remember how to use Zoom here. Thank you. I know I haven't been around so much since we switched over to Saturdays, but the muscle relaxers starting to kick in, so I felt like I could hold my head up a little while and enjoy the chat. Rozzy, it's fucking great to see you. So, the funny thing, Rozzy, you're over here talking about how I don't really have the language ready about the music theory and stuff, but like I probably learned more about music theory listening to you talk than anybody else in my personal life. Rozzy can fucking break it down, let me tell you.
We do go way back, so there is the time component and the different things I've been able to pull out. So
yeah, but it's like, that's the thing. Hanging out with Rozzy in the studio is a learning experience no matter what. Y'all were kind of going off into modes territory a few minutes ago. And so while I'm going to say this, I also have no actual formal training in music theory. It's all what I've gleaned and read and managed to somewhat understand. But here's, it's an interesting thing, so a couple of things I want to touch on. One is the one beat and the funk, and the other is the modes, and I'm going to do it together. So one of the things that's kind of interesting about that home beat is that it doesn't always have to be the one. Sometimes it's really cool when it's not the one. One of the remixes I did for Carl, I change where that home beat is and I make it the 2 on the chorus. Is the V is for Voltage remix.
Yeah.
And it makes for a really interesting kind of like bam kind of effect. Sorry, I'm shouting. The other thing about we have this sort of mental picture. We think of the keyboard and we kind of roughly get it when you're talking about thirds and fifths and sixths and fourths and sevenths and thankfully, having talked to you all enough, I actually have sort of a mental idea of the emotional content of that kind of sound. How that sound affects your emotion, going from the different See, the muscle relaxers are kicking in, which means the words are disappearing on me. Intervals.
Yep.
So the interval between a third and a fifth feels different. You know, it's more of a lift when you go to the fifth, and like you know, you have that fourth, which like you don't hear it as often, so it has this more ambiguous kind of flavor, and like you know, the big leaps, like the sevenths or the octaves, that kind of thing. And so, one of the things that I have found interesting over the course of especially doing remixing, but also working with those sort of random effects that we were talking about earlier, you know, not talking about AI generated, but I'm talking about like, you know, when you plug in a arpeggiator and you start kind of going, how does this sound? You know, and making it do things that you wouldn't expect to normally do with a key because you're experimenting. One of the things that I've discovered is that almost every time I find myself shifting out of a traditional key, you know, that there's always another Greek mode that accommodates it. And if I spend enough time calculating it with a pencil and reading shit off of Google, I can usually figure out, you know, whatever it is. Um, and so like so one of the things that I have discovered, just you know, from over the course of DJing and remixing and somewhat composing, um, sometimes the things that don't work in a typical key structure have greater emotional content. We've lost Carl. But like I've heard it in jazz music, like where stepping down, you know, stepping down whole note. Like normally you don't put two notes like a C and a D next to each other because it sounds kind of weird, right? But then when you put it into a progression where you're going like da 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 da, it gives it a totally different drone. And like all the old spooky jazz songs have that, you know, where they've done it, and it's just a mode. You know, like I think if anything that, you know, the Greeks and Pythagoras, of course, figuring out, you know, the intervals and the string ratios and all that kind of stuff, the fractions, right? Brilliant stuff. But I think if anything, what they've really taught us is that there's kind of no wrong way to do it, because they just found another way that it works out mathematically, and another way that it works out mathematically, and another way that it works out mathematically. And Rozzy, I did catch the little out of tune in Western scale equal temperament thing there, because it's true. And I think just as a point of interest on that, I think one of the things that's kind of really cool about you know, synthesizer music, electronic music and that kind of stuff is we can detune shit. And you know, so I think actually one of the things people probably don't like about the Skeleton Closet, my record, right, is that I detune a lot to match my voice, because I started from voice and from the melodies that I had written in my mind and singing it out kind of thing, and not worrying about whether or not it was in key, or whether or not it was in tune of equal temperament even. And so a lot of times in my record, it's like it's technically flat on a note or something, but it's like 20 cents flat. You know what I'm saying? So I think if anything, the more that you break those standard box kind of things, the more creative you can really be. I mean, you were talking about I was likening it to Ella Fitzgerald, Carl, when you were talking about, you know, kind of curling and swirling and angling along the notes kind of thing. She was brilliant at that, and like makes me weep brilliant with that kind of thing, with the microtones, and just finding, like, I've always said about Ella Fitzgerald, one of the things that blows me away about her is that she finds notes in between notes where no previous note has existed. And that's actually fucking hard to do. You know, that's playing on a bend. You know, I know I complained about that when I was writing the record, because I had one note in my song that I could not find on a keyboard, and I ended up having to bend it. So anyway, that was y'all got me like super excited with the conversation today, and that's my like collection of brain dumpings after listening to you guys for like 40 minutes.
Okay, this is brilliant. Microtonals is an absolute conversation within itself. There is a universe between the black and the white key, which gets into granular synthesis and all sorts of really fandangle stuff. And I will also say that, if you do a Van Halen and you hit on the 4 and. Okay, Mark. Thank you, Adam. It's so good to see your face again. Mark, talk to me.
What Adam had said, it reminded me of a question that I had, and I talked to Ivan about it offline, and he thought maybe it was a ratio thing, but so I'm working on a song, and usually I grew up like album-oriented rock sort of thing. I mean, Ivan broadened my musical world tremendously in everything he introduced me to, but I come from, old school stuff, AOR and whatnot, and so like you'd get a lot of like shadowing, what I call shadowing anyway, because I don't know all the terms, but if the guitarist is playing a line and the bass sometimes shadows them, and they all move along. So normally what I would do is if it's D on the bass, it's D up on top, or the complementary, like if you're working E B whatever, something like that, A D E B, that sort of thing. But what I ran into when I was working on this quite by accident, and it surprised the heck out of me, and I don't understand why it works, and you guys will. If you have a drone, I just have a bass drone, like on D, and then I go F, G, and then actually up to C or down to C, depending on whether it's an even or odd. I alternate. But like the weird thing is, like, if you do it like, if you just shadow that on top with this arpeggiator, just a single note, not up or down, it's literally just beep, 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 on the single note, and you just did it on like the same note, it's harmonically right and it sounds right. Boring. But what I found was if you just go up a semitone, so if I'm doing D sharp,
Yes.
F sharp, why does it work? Everything in my head says it shouldn't work, and it should sound like it's like dissonant, but it sounds more harmonious than the actual matching note. Why?
Because you don't get excitement out of consonance without introducing dissonance. That's where the fun of consonance comes in. If it's purely consonant with simple ratios and diatonic tones throughout the whole thing, well, there's some excitement you can have. But if you put some actual going out of the key, minor second friction points, and especially since you're talking about an arpeggio in the top, you're all passing tones, and they're all bringing you back to this moment of dissonance released to consonance, and that's where the magic is. Some of the magic.
Neat. I mean, it's valid though, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
100%.
Thank you.
That also kind of brings me back to what I wanted to launch off of Adam's talking about vocals as being the center of where the idea comes from. And I don't know if it needs to be said, but a group of people singing don't usually tend toward equal temperament. There's no natural slide toward stretching the tuning to accommodate upcoming key changes. You just sing pure intervals. So your thirds are in simple ratios and your fifths are in simple ratios, and you sing in tune with each other. And the same thing happens usually if you're singing on part of the assumption that Western harmony, I think 12 tone equal temperament and make keys is of to like the fact slightly all the time and not actually fundamental.
Sorry. A lot of music. There's this thing I want to. Thing I hear. That you see. It's just something basically is. Does this sound good? How does this make me feel? And remove yourself from the either. See, the thing about equal temperament is that they naturally sings equal temperament. You don't. You've got this.
There's no way.
Yeah, everybody's been gifted with the scale, and that's the scale they sing. And when people say, "Oh, I sing out of tune," it was maybe you don't. Maybe it's that you sing in your tune, your tuning, your scale. Maybe equal temperament isn't for you. Actually, this is that I use a lot, and it's got tone. It's semitone, half tone, semitone, tone and a half. I think it's only got 6 keys in it or something. But the really nice horror movie ones, which is half full tone, half a tone, full tone. So in D class, why D? Why am I starting in D?
Do I have to
the
answer?
saddest one.
It's the saddest key of all. That's right, Mark. That's right. You push Resi away, steal the apple, because the apple is yours now. So in Resi lost the apple. No longer teaches Penny's happy. This is called a semi-full. Okay, here you go. I'm not going to pretend that you're hearing it in your mind. And it's the most incredible thing you've ever. So in D, it would be D. Then we're going to go a half step, which would be E flat, and a step, which is F. Half step to F sharp. Full step to A flat. Half step to B. Half step to E. Full step to D. Half. That was scale. That's great for horror. The great thing is all of these chords you play that scale, like shit, and all weird augmented chunky chords, and there's new ones and mine. All of this weird new thing overlaps. I feel like people don't know anything about this. It doesn't matter. What you can very easily do is throw a scale at someone, and their brain's going to establish that scale. Communication, I'm talking within seconds. They're going to go waiting for the next 3 minutes. It's cool. Weird scale. They went, okay, cool. This is going to, and it sounds a little bit different. This is a chance for you to experiment within these things and weird chords. What does your want to see? Where do you want to go there? No, and pop, I don't care about pop. I wish I'm not. I write weird shit. Luckily, people who I gravitate around are in that conversation, it didn't go anywhere. Resi, save me.
It's tough to open your mouth when this is being streamed to YouTube in the absolute embarrassment we have in traditional music stuff with then. But Adam really had to be last week on his C flat, different than B natural, and it's entertaining. Natural, of course, a lot of these things that we're talking about now, and I can't underscore. If we're playing chords, we're playing chords. It's fine. We'll use equal temperament. That's what we're going to do. But if we're doing our own practice in singing along with our own vocal tracks, or just making harmonies on something that doesn't have frets or keys, voice, fretless guitar, fretless bass, violin, then we can explore those notes a little more easily. But the minute we put something with frets or keys into it, it does kind of step all over our experiments. But check out the Adam Neely piece is there in the chat now.
Thank you, chat.
He does a little bit more like just enharmonic equivalents or different ways of spelling the same note. It's actually goes into some of the stuff we're talking about, like when to use the various tunings of the same notes.
I wanna wing back to this. Mark, I really want to hear what you have to say. I want to wing back to this. And I'm going to talk about modular synthesis and the voice and drones. But Mark, just a prompt because I'm going to forget because my mind's scattered. It's all Adam's fault.
It's the
And oh my god, the things you can do with it. The quote you got, I don't know if it's a quote you're lifting from somewhere or if it's just like common knowledge that I'm not privy to, but like the whole D minor is the saddest key thing. Like, there's got to be an exception to that because
no, there is no exception. Take the apple. Get out now.
All She Wants Is by Duran Duran. D minor, and
this song makes me cry. It makes me cry.
Oh, really?
Yes, it does.
Really?
You know why? Because it's sad.
Confirms that is goth.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, honestly, people, and I keep telling Ivan this because I read this somewhere. Like, you read critic reviews, and like a huge part of like the Cure's pornography album is like in D minor, and like people are like, it's the dreariest, saddest affair ever pressed to vinyl. I'm like, that's a happy, bouncy album. To me, that is, a lot of people say it's dark. I think it's happy. It always, I can't listen to it without smiling. So maybe I'm just weird.
It is thoroughly shiny compared to the top.
I will get there. I might do it tonight.
I just want to ask if you're streaming, if you're listening on the streams, let me know if we still got audio. Apparently, audio's cutting out. I'm just having great fun here right now. No, that was great, man. Thank you. I wanted to put my hand up, but Resi beat me to it. It's the saddest key of all because Spinal fucking Tap.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Rez.
Can I
say that more? Yeah.
I put it.
Be excited about Spinal Tap.
To Nigel Tufnell in the chat. It's one of the most important movies about music and musicianship and identity and class and culture that has been created in our time.
Hollow, was that the second YouTube link?
But
here?
it's also.
This is turning into a YouTube party.
Did I? Yeah, sorry. Well, reference acknowledged is all I'm saying. I want to be the loser at the party that also explains the joke in that in 12th tone, the equal temperament part is that all the keys have the same sadness quotient, minor keys. They're all tuned the same amount. When you're using other temperaments, it's possible that there could be a sadder sadness. Maybe like minor would be sadder than a major key. We got that. But the fact that he also says D and he's playing it on a piano is, pick your key. They're all stretched to the exact same tuning. So there is no difference among all of the minor keys.
So you're saying Spinal Tap is wrong?
No, I think that's part of the joke is what I'm saying. Like, I'm assuming.
So you're saying Spinal Tap is a joke?
No, actually, I'm sorry. I've rethought my entire premise here.
My entire career, they were right. I was wrong. I'm
Spinal
sorry.
Tap is embarrassingly and accurately so much not a joke that it's, I think, okay to regard some of the things that land as humor as such. I don't know. It's a deep hole.
It is a deep hole. So I'm getting reports that something got muted on YouTube. I don't understand what's going on. I'm having so much technology fun today. Yeah. So what I wanted to say is, jokes aside, with Spinal Tap, Mozart did say it was sad. D was sad. I don't know why. But he did, apparently. It's this key of death. But that doesn't matter. Granular synthesis is fascinating because we're now going into harmonics that are weird and that are in the universe and strange, and we are now going into the microverse, where oh, hold on, man, this is just, God, Carl, you and your witchery, that the so set up a drone, D, E, whatever you want. There's just something comfy about D. When you hit a D, it feels nice. There's something about it that feels nice, and there's just something nice. So you're gonna set up that drone, but instead of having like a synthesizer playing on top of it, you're gonna maybe use a synthesizer that isn't in tune, or you can fuck with the tuning, or the best synthesizer you've got is your voice. You will use your voice. Because, you know, there's magic in your voice. There's magic in the tonalities that your voice hits. There's something there that is really beautiful and wonderful. And whether it's a place to start or you're going to use the final thing, I don't know. Put lots of reverb on it. Do it. Have excessive fun. Put gallons and gallons of reverb on your voice. Audio is rubbish. I don't know what's going on YouTube. I don't know what's going on. I think we've still got audio going to Twitch. Oh, this is really such a confusion to me. Okay, look, I'm having some issues here. I've got to stop the recording. I'm trying to record this. Okay, well, I just stopped recording. Find things in your house like bowls, prayer bowls if you have them, saucepans, whatever, and strike them, hit them, bow them. Try and, for the sake of the freedom of your mind, because your mind has been quantized to thinking in equal temperament. Your mind has been, all of the processing of music in your mind seems to be absorbed into the harmonic relationship that happens when you hit this chord. It's all those upper harmonics are quantizing your brain. Free your mind. Do something interesting. We've been talking about the sounds of the universe and the sounds of the planets. What happens when you... And this is the lovely thing about modular synthesis, is that you can ever so tiny, you could set up a sequence inside a modular synthesizer, and that sequence is all based on notes that are not tuned to equal temperament, and the one note it does hit is going to be whatever note that drone is in, and it will hit that once every 8 notes. Boom, it's going to hit a D, and then it's going to ever so... And those notes might be all fitting within a tone, or a semitone, or a minor third. Thank you for keeping the eye on the stream. And there might be all of these different tones going on. What I'm saying is, when you start doing these things, you begin to really free your brain. A fun thing to do is come up with an arpeggiate, an ARP pattern in voltage, run it into a little pan, a potentiometer, bring that pan down. So instead of it playing 1 volt difference, it's only playing like 1/3 of a volt difference. And all of the other notes that are being distributed are also being squished down. So you're creating something that is new and bizarre. And what you might even do is the song starts where the potentiometer is all the way down, so it's only playing a D, and then you bring it up a bit, and the sounds are bouncing around there in a little bit, and by the time it hits the last, moment, you bring it up to 100%, so it's playing whatever the notes are supposed to be. Experiment. And these are experiments to do something to your brain. Remember that the frequencies, there's something magic in frequencies. There's something magic in upper harmonics. There is something magic there that is pushing your mind into something This is 2001 stuff. It like ba 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 ba. You know what I mean? You're the monkey who picks up the stick and figures out you can kill people and eat meat. That was such a bad analogy to make just then. But you know what I'm saying is that the whole thing about, why modular synthesis when it came along, it wasn't just the LSD, it was also modular synthesis going, there is life beyond the piano. These upper harmonics are inspiring your imagination. Fuck with shit. And everybody who's been doing Indian music's been going, yeah, dude, we've been doing that for thousands of years. Jump back on the bus, man. So that was the worst spiel ever because it didn't make any sense. And if you were watching on Twitter, I hope that was okay. Does anybody else want to throw into there about fucking shit up? I think I want to just do a stream where it's like, what I really want to do is have a stream that is, we're going to drone around the clock. We're going to do 24 hours of droning. And we're going to go from artist to artist, and we're going to Twitch raid to the next one. But you're going to do a drone. You have 2 hours to create a drone. And you have 2 hours to go somewhere in your mind. And then we're going to pass it on to the next one. It's kind of like, one of those DJ sets, but it's like, you're going to trip balls for the next 24 hours and we're going to guide you. I would love to fucking do that shit. My God. And if you want to do that shit with me, please let me know, because I really want to do that shit, man. I want to free my mind so badly, and I want to... There is magic in music, and I want to open your mind. Mark, I see your stance. Maybe you are a cat. Maybe that's the thing here, is that this is Mark's basket. Go. What do you got?
Well, you were mentioning the tapping on the, and I went in the closet because I knew I still had it. I was talking about the GR1, and I combined both the things. You're like bang on stuff and whatnot, and I watched somebody do like a whole sequence on the Deluge based on like their refrigerator beeping. They just sample the thing with it. But I turned around and just like a Pyrex measuring cup and like slide from a slide guitar, and you just sort of thing sample it, granularize it. And the things you can do, yeah, you're not wrong there. It's just like combine the two worlds, and you can do magic.
And it's funny, we were talking about Carl Sagan, who when the aliens come, they will refer to him as the Great One, because even in great civilizations, Carl Sagan will be considered as a Great One, because his mind was absolutely liberated. Not only was he a cynical fucking scientist bitch, but he set up SETI, and then he wrote books. And I was watching Cosmos, because Tubi streams it non-stop. You can just jump on and jump off. And it's Neil, and I love Neil. Neil's awesome. And Neil was, we went into the Dewdrop. And it was funny. He was talking about all the life that's in Dewdrop and the miracles of, chlorophyll, chloroform, and really crazy shit. And if we could figure out how to do chlorophyll, our civilization would change. Everything would change, because we could make glucose out of sunlight and carbon dioxide and water, and that's it. So anyway, and it's so funny that as Azu's talking about all these miracles, my brain is just going microtones, granular synthesis. That, within a second of sound, not even a second, like within a tenth, a hundredth of a second, there is a universe of sound in that tiny moment. And there is a universe of harmonics that we've never heard in that tiny moment. And that blows my fucking mind. Even in that sound I just made, someone is going to sample that. You go through and you granularize that thing. You could stretch that out for days, and it would be the most incredible sounds that have never been heard before. and my mind begins to quake. Then, Resi.
There may be a dozen or so ways of exploring the harmonic partials and content in a fraction of sound. But the one that I've been messing with this past month and a half, doing some ambient excursions, is still Paul Stretch. There are some sliders, and it's going to synthesize stuff. This isn't really necessarily things that are truly in the sound. They're, you play white noise into it, and you can have whatever partials you want. They're all there. But being selective about a sound that does have character, you can pull up the mids and you can pull up the high content parts and get these little crystal moments and instances from a small piece of music and turn them into evolving long, entire, I don't know what you'd call it, long form evolving noises. That, they go there. They do some of what you're talking about. Granular synthesis in general, I don't know exactly how closely it relates to non-tonality, but you definitely end up finding stuff that's unrelated to the key by dropping, a piece of audio into the grains. That's super good.
Because my granular, everything I do is so old school, I'll just go on the Emacs and I will go, like a little tiny sample this big, and then I'll move it a few and move that one a few and just see what happens.
Scrubbing through a little complex changing, waveform snippet and listening to what the computer interpolates out of each of those sections is one of the most satisfying things about granular synthesis.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And it's, I want to do this thing. I'm very inspired by, I saw this Budo, Testa Quincy, the Budo master, did a 24-hour, was it 24-hour or 48 hours? Something ridiculous. She nearly died at the end of it. 24-hour Budo performance. I was just so inspired by that, it was, and I was watching it and I was going, granular synthesis. This is granular synthesis. This is a person who is exploring, instead of me going like that, exploring that, it took her an hour to go from there to there. And the muscular strength of this human being is insane. And it was like, as she moved, you were going, this is remarkable. This is what we look like to fucking fleas or bees or something. And I was just going the whole time, this is granular synthesis. Do bees hear a world of granular synthesis? So anyway,
this is why we need a microphone and sampling pipeline that goes up to 192K.
Yeah.
So you can pitch it down and hear all the stuff that's going on up there. What are the bees hearing?
Yeah.
What are the dogs hearing?
Yeah.
There's plenty of stuff up there. We just aren't sensitive to it. It's fun to shift it down.
Yeah. And it's like the, when NASA took the recordings of the planets and recordings of the planets and shifted them to, to see what radio waves sound like bouncing off planets, and now we're going to bring that into the audio spectrum, and this is what they sound like, and it was the greatest thing I've ever heard.
That's our...
Sorry, I missed that. Razzie, can you give me that last second again?
That's art.
That
a lot
is
of
art.
that turning radio visual and radio spectrum into audio, or other kinds of visualization with color, light, and stuff is a cool art based on science. Steve.
Yeah, and I just think that if you're watching this and you're here, I charge you with, give yourself a few hours to fuck around, to have fun, and to inspire yourself and push yourself to make music and noise, and to heal and excite and inspire, because I think we really need that now. that all of our community and we need to become oblique strategies. In fact, would you like me to give each of you a reading? Would you, each of you like a reading? Right, I want you to write this down. Okay, here we go. I'm giving each of you a reading. This is a serious moment. Okay, I got that one. Okay, I'm going to start as I see you guys. Raz? You got a blank card. Do you want to take that blank card, or do you want the blank card? Okay. Mine.
I absolutely cherish the blank card.
All right, you got a blank card. That's so Eno. Mine is do something boring. Okay. Ivan. Get your neck massaged. Read into that. What does that mean? Musically, what is my neck? How do I get it massaged? Vince, courage. And there's an exclamation mark at the end. There's a space and an exclamation mark. It's not courage, exclamation mark. It's courage, space, exclamation mark. So my question is it saying courage, courage? Or is it saying courage and the space is exclaimed? How do you exclaim space? Vince, you're going to find out. Mark, tape your mouth. What does that mean? Don't actually tape your mouth. What does that mean? Ask yourself, what does that mean? How do you tape your mouth? Is it to record your mouth? Is it meaning to find the thing that's loudest and close it off and let other parts speak? What does that mean? Damn it, Mark, don't do that because I lose you're next, Mark. Emphasize repetitions. Emphasize repetitions. What does that mean? What does it mean to emphasize a repetition? What does it mean? Ha! I just did Adam, bridges, build, burn. But go deeper than what it says here. What does it mean for you, for your music? What does that mean? Kerry, simply a matter of work. Simply a matter of work. Simply and work. Those two words don't go together. Because work isn't... I know, this is fun. Simply a matter... And a big hi to anyone who's on acid right now. This would be the best thing you've seen on television all year. Diana, emphasize the flaws. Emphasize the flaws. I love it. And Alex, I'm going to do one for you. Cascades. And Doom Gardner, I'm seeing you there. And if you want a reading, just put your little fucking thing up in there so I can read it to you. Okay, Doom Gardner TV. What wouldn't I do? What wouldn't I do? I think that's a doozy. Hold on, I'm just going to fling through here. And so this is for Alex. I don't know if you're still on the stream, Alex. Orozonko. I hope I got your last name wrong. Correct. That other Alex was for Alex in Berlin, but this one, Alex Ozoronko. I'm sorry if I got your name wrong. This is for you. Revaluation, a warm feeling. Did I pronounce that correctly? Revaluation, a warm feeling. I'm just going to scroll down. If you want one, tell me now. Hold on. Okay, and now here's mine. Reverse. Interesting. Maybe that means start with the chorus. Excellent. I'm going to leave these out just in case anybody else wants a reading. I was actually talking, so my friend who I went to the beach with yesterday is a dear friend who is now recovering from cancer. A lot of people I know are getting hit with cancer. There's something weird is going on here. She identifies as a witch. Her area of strength is astrology, and she is also heavily into the tarot. Both her and her husband has a 1972 copy of Oblique Strategy, 74, the original one. She has 72, excuse me. Hold on. So, and you know, I was saying how it's really interesting that Oblique Strategy is kind of like the tarot, but I'm being very careful what I say there, because, you know, the tarot is a very important and ancient, you know, mystic thing, and I don't want to, oh, Maz, hold on, Maz, I see you. Give me a sec, I'll give you a reading. I don't understand the question. I think that's the greatest thing you could ever experiencing is not understanding the question. Maz, for you, and it's good to see you. Wow. Wow, Maz.
Just to highlight, the word dilemma is in the subtitle, so.
Maz, be extravagant. But my darling, you are. Okay, so, yeah, we were just talking about how, you know, the thing about the tarot is that there's a lot that you don't understand, and there's a lot of mystery in it, and there's a lot that, you know, you have to, that the universe, thank you, Alex, I apologize that I got your Roscoe. I'm so sorry I got your name wrong. There's a lot that the universe will reveal to you, and I guess for these things it is as well. So I hope this has brought something to your playing field. Mark, I see your hand go.
The tape your mouth thing, to me immediately, that's so pertinent because, you know, I recently got into guitar on top of synthesizers, and like I will be working with someone and he'll want something, and happy to do it. I love collaborating, even if I'm not uncredited, it's fine. I just like the experience. But like, what I found is the whole serve your song thing, right? It has to be in service of the song, and to me that is like perfect because I overplay. So it's like tape your mouth, just cut out like 90% of what you just did. Pick the important bits, right? That's what it said to me. And the other thing I think was just the one someone else got. It was about repetition, and it just brought to mind something that it deserves a listen. Actually, I thought it was interesting, and at the time I thought it was pretentious. But Ride did a song, Repetition, and it's
Steve Reich?
the main hook. No, Ride.
All right,
The
yeah,
shoegaze
sorry.
band. And the thing, and they took it from like the art school world, but it was repetition is a form of change, which I always thought was very paradoxical. But when I read them talk about it in an interview, it made more sense to me. But it was just something to think about. I think if you listen to the song and just even listen, you know, think about the quote, and maybe look up the interview that they did where they explain it. But yeah, repetition as a form of change, and it seems like an oxymoron, but not really once they explained it, sort of. So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. But no, yours spoke directly to me. Stop overplaying. So thank you.
Thank you, Eno. Thank you, Eno. You know, and I was just gonna say we should all have capes, which goes back into, you know, thank you, Eno. Mark Bird, I see your hand.
Okay, so wait, which reading was for me and which reading was for Mark L?
The second one was for you. No, I got...
Okay, I wrote down the first one.
Okay, which was Tape Your Mouth.
I thought that was the first one.
I thought that was for you as well. Hey, you're allowed to take each other's readings. It's okay. Um, uh, uh, so I know that. What I'll do is we'll watch the YouTube again, and I'll tell you. Today's oblique strategy reading. But yeah, mine is still, I think Adam's I liked. But we'll watch that. I think the first one was for you, but it's okay. You may take anyone else's. You may absorb the Eno. Absorb the Eno. Does anybody else have anything else they want to throw in here, or should we stream to MTV TV? Yeah, let's do MTV TV. MTV TV is bloody awesome, and I'm going to put a thing in here. If you don't know where we're going here. We are going to go to MTV TV, and I just sent them another video as well. Boom. That's where we're going now. MTV TV. If you're on Stretch, you're going to zoom on over there right now. Hold on, Mark, is your hand still up? Okay. And we're going to stay back here and have a chat. But let's raid, Diana. And thank you for doing this, and thank you for joining us. And I'm really inspired. So I thank you. What, Decky? Vince, what do you got there?
I've got my tarot cards, actually.
Let's hang back and do a reading. Thank you for joining us. We've set up we've set up the raid. All right, fantastic. You guys rock. Bye. 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 Bye.